What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Happy Tuesday to everybody. Okay, so before I show you my next interview, which is very timely to everything that's going on with the Tridactyls, I do want to share with you guys the that since Will's video of Incredible History came out, I have even changed my position a little bit on the Tridactyls, and I wanted to talk to someone on the other side of the equation. I wanted to talk to somebody like Dr. Roger Zúñiga, who is the director at Ica University. And something that I was not expecting is to hear Dr. Anna Brady-Estevez from the Ecosystemic Futures podcast and from American Deep Tech and from former member of the National Science Foundation. I wasn't expecting her to talk about the Tridactyls. When I heard her talking about the Tridactyls on Martin Willis's podcast UFO, I realized that maybe I could talk to her about this. And I showed her Will's video, which is very well done. Before I saw Will's video, honestly, I was more on the 70-30, leaning towards the larger specimens being real. After I saw Will's video, I'm at a 50-50. I got to be honest with that. And I was hoping that I could get a detailed response to the debunk from Dr. Roger Zúñiga. Unfortunately, a lot of the people involved in that case from Ica and from Jaime Maussan's team, you could say, they are like not even trying to entertain any of the debunks that have existed for many years. The response immediately is to dismiss these people and not really make a counter argument that um, to me is needed, especially in a moment like this, because there's so much debate about this. We do address the video. There's a part on this where a couple of minutes, like less than 3 minutes, where the translation is not okay because the way we recorded this was it was Anna, Dr. Roger Zúñiga, and myself. And in the Anna parts, we were speaking in English, but there were many parts where the doctor was speaking in Spanish. And I got help from my friend Gonzalo Chavez to translate. And that little part, it doesn't have the clone voices. So it can be a little confusing if you don't pay attention to the conversation, but it's just 3 minutes. The rest of it, we did get to clone each of our voices. So it wasn't really that bad of a translation. If you see where the translated parts are, that is not matching the image, don't be discouraged. This is what happens always when you change Spanish to English. English is a much more simpler language. It doesn't have so many variations as Spanish does. So if you see the image that is not matching the audio, pay attention to the audio because that is the exact translation that we use. That's why it has many cuts as well. But I did want to tell you guys about this, and I wanted to let you know that I remain on the fence about this. But Dr. Anna Brady-Estevez does name drop somebody who I think could be the perfect idea for a debate. And that somebody is a very prestigious radiologist from the Space Station Laboratory. And Dr. Anna Brady-Estevez names this person, and my guess is that this person is going to be more involved in the case moving forward. She was okay with us naming her, so I'm just going to leave you with this and with breaking news. Somebody from the Space Station Laboratory is part of the Tridactyls investigation because Dr. Anna Brady-Estevez took this person to Peru to see the mummies firsthand. That's the news, but I'm going to leave you with this entire interview of myself, Dr. Anna Brady-Estevez, and Dr. Roger Zúñiga for Psicoactivo. Enjoy. What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Happy Sunday, everybody. Okay, so today's a very special day, a little bit expected because I wanted to do something significant with the Nazca Tridactyls case. And I wanted to talk to someone who has been involved in this case for a while, and somebody who's relatively new to the case. And she recently kind of ousted herself in Martin Willis's podcast UFO show, where she seemingly she seemed to be talking about the Tridactyls. She wasn't very specific, but I think that's what she was doing. So I want to welcome today an unusual pair, but they've been working with each other for a little while. I want to welcome Dr. Roger Zúñiga from Ica University and Dr. Anna Brady-Estevez from American Deep Tech. How you doing?
Pleasure to be here. Placer.
How are you, Doctor?
How are you? Good evening. Nice to greet you.
A pleasure to finally have you here because I've been chasing you for a long time. Not really, but I've been wanting to talk to you. First, I wanted to express my satisfaction and honor.
To talk with you to, answer the questions you want to ask about this novel discovery that occurred in this century, in this millennium.
Yes, sir. I wanted to first say that I understand you went through a health incident and were hospitalized. How are you now?
Yes, I'm recovering quite a bit. I still have some small problems, but I think I'm about 85 to 90% recovered.
That's great news. Yes, we were very worried when we found out what happened to you. Yes, it was like, hopefully you'll recover. It's great that you're still here with us and that very well. Well, the case is right now, many things are happening with the Nazca Tridactyls case. I wanted to talk to you because indeed, you have been involved from the beginning. The case, if I understand correctly how it happened, was that this grave robber, Mario, was the one who found the specimens in a place near between Cusco and Palpa, I understand, and then Palpa and Nazca, and then the journalist Joyce Mantilla and the Incari Institute were the first to have contact with Mario, and then Mario and Thierry Yamin himself from the Incari Institute contacted you. Is this correct?
Yes, we had contact with them initially with Terry Amin, with Joy Mantilla, and later with the other people. What a satisfaction to have a lot of friendship and constant communication and being involved in this problem of the investigation to clarify what it's about.
And you are the director of ICA. You are an anthropologist, right?
Research at the University of the Tridactyl desiccated bodies. We don't want to use the term mummies much because they are not mummies, because mummification is completely different from how these bodies were found. These bodies have been found completely natural. There was no human intervention in the desiccation process. So they are complete as they were, except for Maria, who has been torn in the part of the anus. I don't know, some animal probably was feeding after she died. The only body, but the rest is completely intact. There is no part that has been removed, nor added, nor diminished. Everything is complete.
Okay. I wanted to ask you something specific about a young man named Will who has a channel where he just made a video talking about an alleged debunking of Maria and Monserrat. He had a morphological anthropologist and a radiologist on his channel, and I understand that they had been talking about this for years. There was already an alleged debunking of this case, and that supposedly there was mutilation in both Maria and Monserrat, and they made a very complete video, very well explained. But what I understood was that you already knew that it had been exposed as a debunking of the Tridactyls case, but it resurfaced, gained more strength in the American market, especially. And I wanted to know what you think about this video that came out.
Let's see. Yes, I saw it. That video for me is the same old gossip from the detractors. I think this group and others will never stop saying what they have always been accustomed to saying. I don't know what their purpose is. The problem is that they are always denying the real existence of these beings. I don't know what motivates them, what drives them to this. And I must say, I don't know if these people ever came here to Ica, have seen it. In situ, the bodies, as Anna did, or many scientists who came here to Peru, and also many journalists who saw and took with them the impression of what they are. We have no intention of inducing people to believe, but for people to believe in what is. Because reality is reality, reality cannot be hidden. Do what they do, say what they say, objective reality is undeniable. It is undeniable. So, but there will always be people, not everyone agrees with one thing. There are others who do, others who don't, others who stick to the truth, and the truth is science. When we speak for science, we are talking about what we have seen, we have studied, we have done the analysis with the participation of scientists from other nations. They have taken the laboratories to do the analysis, the work continues.
Of the
analysis, laboratory test. So we speak for what is real, for what the scientists, the specialists tell us, that these are the results of the analysis we have conducted. So let them say what they say. It doesn't matter to us. It's really not our business. Rather, it's their business because we have nothing to do with what they believe. Let them believe and keep believing. And in the end, science will say what the truth is, right?
A quick question about DNA analysis, right? Because I understand that there are already some institutions involved in DNA research conducting new tests, since there had already been a couple that had been quite scrutinized. And what can you tell me about these tests, if you can say anything? And if they are definitive?
If they are definitive, we are waiting for the results of the analysis being conducted. We cannot make any judgments yet. It would actually be a mistake when we don't know exactly what the results are. But from what I believe, the results will be the same. But the results will continue to yield the same results unless they show otherwise. Then we're in trouble. Then we have to review again and see what went wrong, who failed, but we are waiting for the results. I'm convinced it will be positive.
Do you have an estimate of when the results might arrive, more or less?
Look, we are coordinating with the university that is doing the work. I don't want to reveal yet which university is conducting this work. Once we have the results, then the university will have to publish as part of their research coordination.
Okay, I'm going to ask you something else that's a bit delicate, but I think it's important to know this because one of the arguments used to discredit or undermine the case is that within Peru, there's a mafia of looters and that. They have a lot of control over many of the artifacts and sites. We know there's a black market that's been running for decades in that area of South America. And I wanted to ask you what the scientist's position is on this possible situation with the looters and this mafia, if it has caused any discomfort, or even I've heard sometimes there have been threats to some of the scientists. What could you say about this on air?
Look, the problem of looting in Peru is long-standing. It's been happening for many years, in which even, I've been informed, officials from the Ministry of Culture are involved. That's what they've said many times. I don't know if true. This is very serious, right? But we have no contact with any mafia that probably exists of looters. They've never bothered us. They've never called us at all. The only contact I have and we've had is with the one who discovered these bodies, with no one else. So, well, maybe the looters think in their own way too, I don't know, but I don't think they would dare to meddle in things of global interest because they traffic, but they don't get involved in the scientific situation.
Do you know who the person is who knows the site where the bodies are?
Look, which bodies?
The type M ones like Maria Monserrat Joyce?
Maria is at the university.
I'm talking about the site where they were discovered, Paloma, but I'm talking about where they were discovered.
I've discussed this with the discoverer, with the looter Mario, and he has offered to take me to the place. But once I'm fully recovered, only me, one more person, because I don't know what his problem is. I don't know. But one day we will have to know where this was found because it can't remain hidden forever. Nothing is hidden under the sun, as they say. So one day.
What is your level of trust in Mario, Doctor?
Look, there are no trustworthy people, I tell you. There are no trustworthy people. We can believe people are trustworthy, but sometimes they are not. I've only talked to Mario a few times, but I don't have a friendship with him to know what kind of person he is, whether he can be trusted or not, so I couldn't vouch for anyone.
Okay. And well, thank you very much. If you don't mind, I'm going to ask Anna some questions in English and chat with her a bit too. Okay, Anna, so you're here. I said what you discussed in the podcast UFO show with Martin Willis.
And that was a surprise question. That was not expected. So, I mean, I had been wondering, you know, because I hadn't been trying to bring it up, but, you know, upon being asked, I do think it's important to discuss. And I actually wasn't aware of the analysis that had been done, but that's one of the other reasons that I really felt willing to speak. The importance of doing this follow-up now is the importance of being open to science.
Yeah, because it was very thorough, this analysis, wasn't it? From the American standpoint, people who saw this, it was very, very, very meticulous, wasn't it?
You know, I think that is being, for scientists, I think there's two ways of looking at that. Sometimes it's you hear something and somebody speaks in a manner that's very authoritative and it's, okay, case closed. And I've got to admit that when I had heard about some of these, you know, and I agree with Professor Zúñiga that they're not mummies, you know, it's to call them desiccated bodies, you know, although the vocabulary on that, maybe it works both ways in English. But so I think it is just something, sorry, I lost my train of thought, but what were we?
You were talking about Will's video, how
oh yes, so one way of looking at it is so when I had earlier seen some of the criticisms of some earlier mummies that seemed to be paper mache, honestly, that put me off the interest for a while. And I thought, because I had heard about some of these beings from some pretty serious people. And then I saw an article come out in the news and I thought, oh, this is just a fake. So I do think so I do think a point of caution is sometimes when something comes out, it doesn't take much for people with all of our limitations on bandwidth to just say, oh, maybe there's nothing here to see. And I think that's not the case here. So, I watched that video pretty quickly. And I have not done a thorough analysis on it. So I'm not trying to say that they might not have brought some great ideas or some insight to this. But at the same time, we were aware of the assertions years ago that the fingers have been cut off. So when we went down there, we were looking precisely for that. So we didn't see or think that, that doesn't mean that we're not open to further tests and further analysis. And something that I heard, which I can't affirm, but maybe Dr. Zúñiga has, was some of the people that work closely with the lab, those weren't DICOM images that were being shown. So these were different types of images. And one person I spoke to wasn't clear that they had access to the actual real DICOM files. So I think it's a great thing when people are engaged and they want to do analysis, so there's a lot to contribute from all sides. So respect and appreciation that they have that interest, but I think it's way early. That level of analysis is far from landing that assertion, which is a very serious one. An interesting hypothesis, but I'm not there with them yet.
Yeah, and Will did say that he claims that he did use DICOMs, so we'll have to talk to him about that.
So Roger,
a question. On that show, they said they were using the DICOMs, but I spoke with someone who works with your lab who said they didn't request access to those people, the DICOMs, and that the image that was shown wasn't DICOM, it was something more like fuzzy. I mean, it was a different type of image. I'm saying that different types of images were used. The people who made this video of Will, do you know if they used the DICOMs or if they used another type of image, or are you unaware of what was used? I honestly don't know. What material was used? Okay, very well. Well, Anna was telling me about that other video because I also wanted to ask her the same thing I asked you about the recent video, and I'm not sure, but the people who distribute the DICOMs have said they haven't had access. So the question of what type of image was used is something of interest. Well, generally these people use third or fourth hand material that has been informally published somewhere. People who take material that isn't even theirs and base their critiques on it, and this has no scientific basis, absolutely nothing, because at the very least they should approach the scholars, the scientists who have the material, ask for permission to use it and analyze the situation. But I don't know where they got those images, that material, and they haven't communicated with the lab, with the Tridactyls, or if they've been in contact with you all. Generally, I would call them pirate people. I understand that Will was communicating with you all, right? Generally Will.
Well,
but I'm not asking about Will, I'm asking about the doctors who... The anthropologists, the radiologists who were on that channel. Okay, so they haven't had any contact with you all? No, we never had any kind of contact with them. Okay, very well. We've had contact and they've come to see the bodies and they've left convinced on their own because no one can make people think a certain way. I think there needs to be a critical analysis. One has to think for themselves, see and decide if it's false or not, and demonstrate why it's false, why it's true, and be fair. I'm going to ask you now in English about your adventure going to Peru because I want you to tell me a little about that. If it's okay with you, let's talk about that in English.
So Anna, I want to ask you about, because when you spoke to Martin about this, it seemed to me like you've gone to Peru to watch the bodies directly. You did that, didn't you? How was that like?
Well, I guess first I would say, there's accounts of things like this all over the world, different parts of the world, and certainly many people that we know and trust have spoken to such things, some of them publicly. But Peru is a really nice opportunity where for at least people, scientists, who know the Zúñiga lab, there's been the ability to really access. So contrasting, unusual being maybe seen, maybe there's an image, maybe there's limitations to what can be discussed based on whatever NDAs or classification levels. Those restrictions do not appear to be in place here. So what we're talking about is an actual opportunity for science. So these beings are there, they're available. There's been multiple years of study undertaken on them. So it is a bit of a trek. And just to say, and we know good people who were connected with Dr. Zúñiga's lab. So we were fortunate to have an introduction. We were aware of really a top US university that was going to be undertaking testing, and they had earlier invited us to go down as well. We ended up going down separately at the same time. And so it was just, we are limited in our ability to travel. Actually, I mean, we have a lot of work responsibilities and family responsibilities. And when we went down, we didn't go to Cusco. We weren't sightseeing. So even going down, I mean, it was because we thought that this is something that, regardless of the outcomes, is fascinating from a scientific standpoint. And I'd like to actually send you a few photos of some of our observations. I apologize. Things have been going so fast that we didn't send that.
Yeah, don't worry. I'll post them in
But
post.
I'll speak to some of it verbally, and then I don't know if you splice it in, kind of as we speak. But they're really very distinctive and impressive. So it'll be interesting to see what we learn with deeper scientific study. And there has been some very significant results previously that the lab has shared with us. And that's certainly, with something so big, it is a trust but verified. It's going to be a great thing to see the results. And it seems like multiple groups have already validated similar results, but it's something that it's so major that, it's definitely worth revalidating. But this could be one of the biggest scientific discoveries of all time, depending on what they find. So it's really something to be grateful for, that there's been this welcoming of the scientific community. And it's been a bit concerning that there's been this push to denigrate, kind of talk down, suppress this area of research, and to not show respect to researchers who are telling us that they've been very earnest, and they've certainly been at this for a long time. So, we can always ask questions, we can always validate or invalidate what's being told, but it is most normal, and this has nothing to do with Tridactyls, that truly disruptive science, the most normal thing, and I've seen this across assessing thousands of companies, is usually 75, 80%, sometimes more, of people will say, there's nothing here to see. And that's for things like higher performing batteries, for reusable rockets. There's all these things that are closer in the realm of what we consider more traditional technologies or scientific advances. And it's very normal that scientists and entrepreneurs are told not going to work. Here's why you're wrong. So that's fine. But part of advancing knowledge is really, it's not just about being right. It's about discovery. It's about asking questions. And that's something that is so important for this whole field, is creating a culture where you can do work, where you can ask questions, where you can be wrong to advance things. Almost all PhDs, the research that goes to a PhD, there's a significant percentage of being wrong and iterating. Same thing with building a company. So we should never be pushing people away from asking questions or doing research. So I, as somebody who cares so much about science and is really seeing the potential that this could be very important. And regardless of outcome, it's going to be fascinating. Just want to really make sure that we're taking this seriously.
Yeah. Something that I do want to say though about this is that it makes no sense to me that I've already heard some of the names of the institutions involved in the testing that is going on right now. And it doesn't fit in my mind that these institutions didn't see that old debunk from Will and just acted on this. Like, and it's impossible for them to not have seen this. And if it was any legitimate in any way, they obviously would have rejected to do any type of testing with this. So it just goes to show, like, there's a lot of people that are trying to push against this, but they don't know who's already involved in this. And I think that's an important point to make. And I wanted to ask you my next question about that, because somebody who went with you to Peru, can you give us like a periphery idea of who this person is and what their credentials might be?
She's a top doctor. Her first name is Donna. She's a very, very serious person. So, this is a top-notch doctor.
Can you name the specialty she has?
She's a radiologist. She's somebody who's done a lot of work in space. I think Donna Roberts would be fine with us using her name. And we went down there very much in the spirit. She would have liked to have joined us tonight. She just had something come up from a scheduling standpoint. And I do think as scientists, and I don't want to speak for her, but I know that she was very impressed. And then she also, as a very serious scientist with a number of publications, she's eager to learn more before saying what something is or what something isn't. So exercising. So I think sometimes that exercising of caution, of not speaking until there's a whole lot more data. But at the same time, because this is being discouraged as an area of research right now, and because I do believe there's going to be some major results coming out, and that might continue over time, setting the stage for really having curiosity, having humility, and listening and scrutinizing whatever the results. I mean, when the results come out, I mean, we hope to see multiple entities do their own different types of testing. And so we might agree or disagree with the first ones. It might be different types of things that come out. But so she went down there. I brought her with me because I thought it was important to have a medical doctor, and we see the importance of having people with a broad range of scientific expertise. So material sciences, biotechnology, there's so many surgeons, there's so many different areas that could be useful here.
And just to be
also
clear,
just people off the street, because I mean, we're waiting, and Gonzalo made a great point when I was talking to him. We talk about DNA testing, but Gonzalo says, you look at the fingerprints, which are stronger than DNA testing. And I didn't personally see the same fingerprints because of the way the hands were bent. But they're straight line fingerprints when you look at the images. And so
they're really weird.
There's so many things, and I'd be happy from the observational science side to speak to some of the things that we noticed when we were down there. And, if we cut in some breaks for Dr. Zúñiga to give some details, because certain things, when you see it, you can see that it's distinctive without needing a DNA test. So if you see a gorilla, that that's very different than a human. If you see an octopus, you don't say, let me get the DNA back, and see if this is a human or not. So, there could definitely be a hybrid. I think Dr. Zúñiga has even said that there is some interest in whether Wawita might be fully human. The cranial plates, and I'm not a doctor focused on the head, Donna is. It seems that there's quite a bit of similarity to humans, which is not the case with Alberto and Victoria. So there's these beings, when I say, and again, this is just one snapshot of a broader body around the world that's been spoken to by many people. But in this case, whatever they are, they present as very distinctive from humans.
Yeah.
And I can speak to some of those observations of some of the things that look very different and unusual.
Yeah. I will ask you about that, but I do want to ask Dr. Zúñiga a new question about a specific person. Doctor, I just asked Dr. Anna about the person who accompanied her to Peru to see the bodies, and she told me a bit more about her in more detail and managed to tell us her name so people know the level of person involved and also the institutions that are already involved in this. And I was also telling her that it seems quite illogical to me that such prestigious institutions involved in this haven't considered all the options, variables, and possible debunkings of the case. And if any of this were true, they wouldn't have agreed to conduct studies. Do you agree?
Yes, of course. Look, at the beginning when this news came out, it was logical for people to start doubting because it's an unprecedented discovery and any scientist doesn't want to venture to deny or affirm without getting involved in the study. But when we started the studies at the university, when we advanced with the tomography, X-rays, and others advanced with the DNA issue, all of this, then some scientists began to approach a bit to see what it was about. And in the end, when they were convinced that these bodies were real or are real, then they definitely got involved, because no person with international prestige, a high-level world scientist, is an adventurer. They have to be someone who is completely sure that what they are saying is true, because that's what it's about. It's about people who guarantee that these bodies are real. So, well, fortunately, I congratulate myself and the university as well for having had contact with high-level people. And at first, of course, there were few, but now many more are joining. Every day they call, get in touch. They are interested, not only individuals, but also institutions, universities. I don't want to say yet who these universities are to avoid being too liberal. So we are also keeping all this in reserve. When we receive the bodies that they will surely deliver to us these days, and when we have these bodies in our possession, and when they are convinced that these bodies exist, then many more researchers will approach and help us unravel this mystery. It's a mystery because it's unique in the world. Peru and this area of Palpa and Nazca, which is related to the Nazca lines, which is also a mystery, still undecipherable. Of course, they are related. And with the carbon-14 dating of Maria or Mario in this case, which is about 1700, 1800 years old. This is related to a society that existed in this part of Peru, the Nazca society, even from the Paracas society. The beginnings seem to have occurred with these works in the Pampa, Nazca with Paracas, continued with the Nazca. But really, it's amazing. These lines have revealed many more geoglyphs. Recently, the Japanese came. Recently, a team of researchers discovered more than 300 geoglyphs that were hidden around there and that have all the characteristics. Some of these geoglyphs, the characteristics of these beings that we have in custody, and also the others that they will deliver to us. Because I saw these bodies like Monserrat, like Paloma, like Sebastian, I saw these bodies, and all these bodies resemble the so-called humanoids. Now, there is a set of bodies that are appearing again. I even saw a fascinating body of an insectoid. They are new bodies that are appearing, a new race, a new species in which it is holding a creature that is a dead baby in its arm, and it has a face as if it were completely sad and distressed by the probable death of this creature. It holds it in its arms, and probably in that state it died. Now, from what, a heart attack or maybe the climate or atmosphere affected it, I don't know. There's a lot of mystery about this. So there is a set of new evidence, but they are all tridactyls. So, well, from a small thing, this is growing. It's like a snowball that as it rolls down the slope, it gets bigger and bigger.
Doctor, I wanted to ask you something specific because you are an anthropologist, right?
Yes.
I understand that you know Dr. Cecino Piotti. He's a friend of mine. Dr. Piotti.
Look, I have a lot of appreciation for Dr. Piotti. We were in Mexico when we were invited to a conference at the Mexican Chamber of Deputies. We were giving a conference there. Well, we are friends. We communicate constantly. Precisely, I recently asked Dr. Piotti for his testimony about what he had found with small beings. I have Dr. Piotti's testimony. As I was saying, Anna is writing a book. They are already reviewing it. So I have.
What do you think of Piotti's theory that, because he said in the Mexican Congress that...
Well, look, anything is possible. Anything is possible as a theory, of course, but it has to be proven, right? Well, a lot of theories, hypotheses will have to be proposed to conduct the research. Nothing is ruled out right now. We can't say this is the truth, this is the path, this is the certain thing. I don't know if when we talked with Anna for many hours, I mentioned and said that this research has at least 5 or 6 decades to go, because what has been done now is just scratching the surface, removing a bit of dust.
We are just starting after a lot of work and participation.
Of course, of all scientists from all specialties, there is the guarantee. Because we can't be the owners of the truth, just a few people. We can't apply what is called professional chauvinism, right? That only these professors have the word or they have the truth. All scientists from all specialties will have to contribute their grain of sand to the knowledge, and it will be much richer.
Perspective is so important. Professor Zúñiga, look at how open he is to the science. So, I mean, there's no pushing of this. It has to be this, and listen to them. They're very much open and dedicated to the ongoing science. So that's one of the things that is not coming out. And I want to address some of the hypotheses that think this is a hoax. They're actually not pushing a narrative. They're pushing for doing the science, and they're opening it to other people to say, what do you see and what research can you contribute? So, Professor, you are not trying to push any opinion.
We cannot bias opinions here. Here it has to be broad, clean, and sincere. That's what it's about. Because this is not a dogma, this is a reality. It's a truth. That scientist, because science is the only criterion of truth. So science will say what it is. Besides this, I want to tell you, probably after receiving these bodies, the official management will be done to the Ministry of Culture for the possession, conservation, and investigation of these bodies, since Maria and Guaguito have been recognized as cultural heritage of the nation. I think it's a good initiative. Why? Because they tell me there is a director of cultural heritage, and she is a much broader person, a more open-minded person, and has not biased the situation, because there was the intention to declare a mummy cultural heritage of a modified mummy. Had it been so, this probably would have done great damage to the research, to the international scientific community, because an opinion of this nature by a national public institution has a lot of impact, a catastrophe. Honestly, for this, recovering people's credibility would have been a long road, etc., etc. Many people, many scientists would have been disappointed and withdrawn this. Fortunately, the director's attitude has been very thoughtful, very intelligent, and she has handled it in a neutral way. She didn't say it's Tridactyls, she didn't say it's fake, she didn't say anything else. Simply saying pre-Hispanic mummies of Peru. So I think that's a good situation. So based on this, we are asking what I have already told you to ask, because she's a more approachable person. She has even suggested to the person she has talked to, these 4 bodies that we have at the university, we can exhibit them for the knowledge of the people. I think that it's a good decision, because people have the right to know, people have the right to see, people have the right to know, because this cannot be hidden. We cannot hide it under lock and key, as they say, but it has to be within reach of the public domain, the press, the common people, all of this. So probably when the bodies are received, the university will officially pronounce, the university authorities will officially pronounce, inviting the international community, the international scientific community, personally or institution. Educational universities or perhaps foundations, I don't know. Everyone participates in.
This because from all over the world, right?
If this is not a problem, it's not a problem of Nazca, it's not a problem of Peru, this is an international problem. I believe these beings should be declared cultural heritage of humanity. Now, this cultural thing is also a problem, because culture is everything man has made, including man. But if these are not human, then whose heritage is it? Who owns this? Then we would even have to change the legislation to see how we place these beings within the heritage laws. Yes, agreed. But anyway, this is a situation that is a responsibility in any case of all humanity, of all the scientists in the world, and that all the common people know that we are not the only ones in the world, or at least we have not been the only ones, but there were other beings different from humans, but who were intelligent due to the cranial capacity they have, because according to Dr. Piotti and Dr. Hernandez, who unfortunately passed away, rest in peace, they have 30% more brain mass, or the cranial vault is much wider, much larger, 30% more than a current human being. So this makes us think that they were human beings with much more intellectual capacity than humans. Unfortunately, we have to accept this reality if it is so.
Very well, Doctor. I want to thank you very much for your time.
Likewise.
I wanted to know if you want to give a message to all those people who have been actively trying to stop the case and to obstruct the scientific investigation, which is what I understand you have tried to do so far up to today. Any message you have for those people so you can...
What I would say to these people is to get involved in the investigation, not to give opinions based on third-party opinions, but to create their own opinion based on the truth, because it's easy to say anything when you don't know the truth. We can speculate for many reasons. There may be political, religious, or any other kind of interest. If the situation is malicious, now telling them not to do that will be impossible. They can say whatever they want. In the end, that doesn't bother us. It doesn't matter to us because we are right, because we are on the scientific path. That is the only reason why we walk that path.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
And another thing is that, Roger, I don't know if it's possible to share the percentages of the results of
DNA.
When the results come out, it will necessarily be made public because nothing will be hidden.
But weren't there previous results that already
Were complete in the repository. I already made videos about that, all the scientists.
Yes, it's a matter of entering the DNA repository of this situation.
I already had a couple of shows about that with the specific scientists who did the analysis, so I'm going to leave it in the description for people to see them.
So I guess we saw observationally, but it was also shared with us. And I'd like for Zúñiga to share, if these are the correct numbers, but that Mario has 30% overlap with terrestrial DNA.
So, Doctor, what Anna is asking is that she had already mentioned this to me, that Mario has 30% similarities with terrestrial DNA and that
Well, that's practically, I don't know what word to use, but it's very little. It's very little the crux of the problem. Why? Because look, if we share or they share 30% of DNA with us, 70% is unknown. So what species does it belong to? Because that 70% unknown has been mapped. It has been compared with all the DNA of living beings that exist on Earth. And there is no similarity. To such an extent, I think I was talking to Anna and I said, what percentage of human DNA does a fruit fly have? According to the information, it says 60%, some 70%. How much does papaya have? Also about 60%. If so, Maria would be neither a fly nor a fruit, nor papaya, of course, nor fruit. So what being are we talking about? Now, if we talk about the other small beings that are 60 centimeters, what we call reptiloid, like Victoria and Albert and many others, they have between 15 and 16%. That is much further from what it is, which is an amoeba, a unicellular being, or I don't know what, right? So the idea is that if we share those percentages of 15 to 32%, it must be the shared DNA of a universal origin.
yes, it could be.
Of course, there is an opportunity for more tests, but those results are like that.
That's why we are clearly planning to do new DNA studies, even in pairs, to have the certification that they are indeed those or not, because we only have the results so far, but we still don't have other analyses of other bodies. Even of the same body, Maria can be taken again to take to other laboratories to see if they give us the same results. There is a variation because this is honestly, as I say, inexplicable, that percentage of DNA with humans. But if the gorilla has 98%, the bonobo chimpanzee has 98.8%, then they are not even primates. Sorry, they are not even anthropoids, not even primates. But if it has the nail by the characteristics they have of tridactyly, those fingers covered by nails, it is a characteristic of primates. The fundamental characteristic of primates is that now the fingerprint, all these things. So I was even recently looking at the feet and hands, especially the feet, to see if there is wear, deterioration, damage when one walks in the desert on the ground barefoot. The nails always crack, break. In contrast, Maria, as Anna has seen, good photos, Anna, right?
And we are going to share some.
Anna took out what we took out, those toes, the nails are intact. So how did these beings move? Did they walk on foot? Did they walk carried on litters? Did they move in a space where they couldn't have contact with the ground?
What are you trying to tell me, Doctor? Or did they levitate?
No.
What are you trying to tell me, Doctor?
Well, we have to consider all the cases, right? Because already that perfect preservation of the feet for a mummy of that.
Era, maybe no more to press a pedal, right? Maybe it has wear on the foot.
They had it on the foot too, covered with as well, with shoes or whatever, so that the feet get hurt. But anyway, they were not ordinary beings that walked like any other person through the desert, through rugged paths of that era. No, or agricultural activities, whatever. Anyway, that means very interesting.
Data you just gave us.
If we observe the foot of the peasants who walk semi-barefoot, those feet are completely damaged, full of calluses and all that, right? So there are many things that need to be observed little by little, and ask yourself, how did this happen? Why this? Why the other?
Very well, Doctor. Thank you very much for your time above all, and I really wanted to talk to you about this. I don't know if Anna wants to add something.
We are going to add some photos then to add some observations. The 3 fingers of the hand, the 3 fingers of the skin are very impressive and are different and are more
longer and bent on the feet. They are shorter and the sole of the feet is very short. More or less, the hand has 10% only in the case. More or less of the human has almost 90% of palm and 10% of fingers, it seems to me. But in this, it is the other way around. Little palm and a lot of finger, both in the feet and in the hand.
so they are more, has the ear
What we see is just like a
hole, right? Yeah, very.
Small hole. Now, all things have their function. This has a function of retaining sound. If they cut us, surely we would hear very little, right? But if this is no longer useful, it means they had a form of communication, not just guttural suddenly, but another form, maybe telepathic. I'm thinking like that, it could be, right? Because this was no longer useful to us. For example, the scalp no longer has hair, right? It's completely devoid of hair. The photo Anna took there is keratinous scaly. So how, in what place on Earth or off Earth, in what environment did these beings develop and evolve? What was the environment that allowed them?
an evolution. I think they are subterranean.
If you ask me, it could be, sure, they could be subhuman or extra-human. We really don't know. But if you notice, nowadays there are many sightings, even NASA, the Pentagon, all these serious institutions have accepted that there are indeed ships that are not.
Human. A question for you, doctor. I'm going to ask you about the implants, but I also wanted to ask you about testimonies from people near the region who have talked about seeing them.
Alive recently. Well, Dr. Piotri told me this. I have the testimony of Dr. Piotr, a friend. We were in a mine. He was delayed and went into a tunnel. And he encountered some small beings about 60 centimeters before this appeared, he told me. And I thought he was a bit exaggerated. I thought it was a joke, but he insisted that he had seen them. So I think there are people who do see these small beings, and in rural narratives, these stories are common. They say they've seen them alone in groups, etc., etc. And many say they are the guardians of the gold mines. I don't know, it could have a lot to do with this look, because there are heads of these small beings that we call reptilians that have gold implants, and in quantity.
And osmium too, right?
They have silver implants with a silver, almost pure, right? About 97, more than 95% purity, which at that time didn't reach that, right? That level of purity didn't exist.
I heard something about the implants that they put something like a frequency meter and it emitted a frequency.
Tests on some implants, and the radiation is very high. It has been measured with some devices. But when we did an analysis of a part of Luisa's implant, who is a small reptiloid, we sent it to the University of Engineering, which is a prestigious university in Peru. And especially in metalwork, they are the first in Peru. I think it must be in many South American countries. They concluded that this implant had 3 types of metals. One copper, another tin, and surprisingly osmium.
One of the rarest and most expensive in the world.
That's the problem. And osmium was only known in the 19th century, in 1803. And at that time, when this mineral was discovered, this metal was placed in the chart of the newspaper.
Periodic table.
Yes, of elements. And there it remained until the era of communications. They tell me this is used in satellites, in high frequency devices. So I talked to an engineer and asked, well, what function did that have, right? Then he told me minimally, I think it was a localization device with a GPS. He said, I'm more inclined to believe it was a communication device. Why? Because inside this metal, which is large, circular in shape, at the end and in the center, connected like by a ribbon, are very thin metals that run parallel. Of course, soldered all around. But when the tomography cut was made, a series of like a kind of circuits. So this still has a lot more to advance in study. That's why we require the participation of a group of specialists. Fortunately, we now have a Chinese collaborator, a very good radiologist, Dr. Fong. Yes, exactly. And he's discovering many other things. If we had a group of radiologists, we could surely have much more.
That's where Donna comes into play. Donna.
That's right. So you see, the situation is serious. It's not just a desiccated body suddenly with a genetic flaw that could be 1, 2, but when it's more than 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bodies, we're talking about a community. Now, what kind of community and with?
What are they communicating as well?
Because they don't record any evidence except in their ceramic representations, weaving these things in their iconography, representations of these completely identical beings, not only in Peruvian iconography, but in several countries around the world. And for that time, imagine, not only in fabrics, ceramics, wood, bone, but in stone, on the ground, you name it, in cave paintings, all this. So, well, we are facing beings that, well, indeed attract worldwide interest. We're not talking about two bodies, but we're talking about many.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Anna,
And I was
mind
just
if I
going to
ask
say
you?
that there's so many people around the world that have been studying this, and one of the reasons that, and we've so far only engaged with the Peruvians, but I think it's really important that English speakers are aware, because there is a
Yeah.
bit of a language barrier. So that's
Very
one of the
much.
reasons that I think it's so important that, as you know, I speak English. I can't really do this that well in French. You know, there's a few languages we have some level of knowledge, but to tell English speaking scientists, there's really something to look into here. And people all around the world are doing this.
Yeah.
So to
And,
know for yourself, you know, be
just,
active in the investigations.
hopefully we can get Donna on record at some point eventually, if she has time. That would be really cool. I really like that you got to mention her, and so the people can understand.
Well, we appreciate Donna, and she's really somebody that's both curiosity driven, you know, in terms of eagerly pursuing scientific advance, you know, and also take science very seriously. And I do think that there's a number of people. I mean, we've all been talking about a very major university that's going to come out probably with some interesting results. There may be others as well over time, even in the near term.
This university is a Ivy League, is it?
It's an excellent question to an Ivy Leaguer. I'll let them stay unknown for now.
That's good. That's good. Good catch. Good
Just
catch,
to let
Anna.
them have their day.
Nearly got you. Nearly
And
got
we'll see who comes out with what when, because this is an area of active research. So I'm expecting a certain university to come forth first, but I don't want to assume that there isn't another university that has
There's a couple
something that they're ready to run with. So I think that I don't want to say which one's going to come first, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously the depth that people will bring forward.
Yeah. Well, Anna, I want to thank you very much for your time and for being brave enough to come forward and talk about this and speak about your experience going to Peru.
Dr. Zúñiga, I want to thank you very much for your time and for having given us this lesson. Thank you very much for the message.
Thank you very much also to you for the invitation and for tolerating all this time. Thank you, Anna. Thank you. Combining with Anna in the studies, but
also, there's another thing I want to say about the observations, because people are talking about the fingers and such, but I also want to talk about the observations because, for example, Alberto and Victoria have very, very long arms compared to humans. Humans, they've got the very, very long arms.
The so-called divine proportion is not met at all.
Not the hips either. Not the hips either.
They are beings. That's why they are beings that probably had an evolutionary process in another space, in another environment that was not Earth.
And Pavo, we are going to share photos that we have taken with observatory science professors, because also their skulls, the skull bones of this type have nothing to do with it. They have lines on the head. It's very outside of what we see in humans. And the face looks very, very different. The head very different.
That's what makes people doubt who are always used to seeing humans. When we have in mind only the human figure, we are seeing them with that mental scheme. But if we step out of this a bit, then we will see them as beings that are not similar. They may be similar to us, but completely different. That's the problem. So we don't detach from our mental constraints to see these beings in their true dimension.
And there was another debunk that might come forward in English, which was earlier that they were saying these were kind of putting together multiple organisms. So what Dr. Zúñiga's lab has shared is that when they did the DNA testing, it tests as the same being throughout. But we went, you know, to kind of look, well, is it this thing on top of that thing, on top of this other thing? And it was not visibly something like that. So that is another question that'll probably come out.
Professor Zúñiga, I was saying that people might also say about this being that they are 3 parts put together, but that the DNA tests, you say they are from the same being throughout the body. For example, Victoria or Alberto told me, no, we have not seen anything connecting things.
What Anna says is that in the DNA test, there will be people who want to debunk it, saying that depending on the part they test the DNA on, they say it will show different types of DNA in each part. But what Anna tells me is that they have already reviewed this and that it is the same type of DNA throughout the body, right?
We have ruled out that possibility, not with DNA. Of course, a DNA study of this part would have to be done because the detractors said that the head was from a llama, the bones were from birds and children covered with plastic, glued with glue, with wires and all this situation. So we did, as I showed another time when she came, we made a cut, took a sample from the head part, took one from here, from the right side, and then from the femur and sent it to the UNE laboratory to see if they indeed belong to different beings. And it turns out that all the samples show that it belongs to the same individual. There is no discussion about that anymore. Now, what is missing is the DNA. Of course, to reinforce that this belongs to a single body, it is not a Frankenstein, as they say. What we have found is skin of a living being. It is not. Also in the tomography, in the X-ray, there is no wire, there is no glue, there is nothing. That is to say, everything has a synchronization in the joints. Of the bones, nothing is protruding or is sunken. No, everything fits perfectly like any living being. So we're not just talking about a superficial appreciation. We're talking about what's being seen with the tomography X-ray technique. Fluoroscopy is another form of radiological analysis. So there's no such thing. They will keep saying that, well, this is how it is, this is how it is. Well, we can't convince, as I said earlier, we're not going to convince everyone in the world, but
Now it's more about doing the research and verifying what has been done before, and conducting new tests today is not, it's not about saying exactly what everything is.
no, that hasn't ended. We need to replicate the analysis to fully corroborate whether it's true or false, because suddenly there's a mistake and it can be rectified, but then it has to be done. The unfortunate thing is that we don't have the means, nor do we have the equipment. It has to be done abroad. Hopefully, with this situation of flexibility from the Ministry of Culture, the bodies can be taken to others, to other countries, to other laboratories, and we have much more ease to conduct the required studies.
Aiding with the collaboration, Professor. I'm saying that we also want to bring experts with whom we have relationship to share the capabilities they have.
The university is always open to the world. It cannot close any participation from anyone. It has to say, as someone said, let 100 flowers bloom, let 1,000 schools compete. Very well, there's the possibility.
And well, thank you both very much, truly. Thank you for your time.
You owe me another conversation about different topics. We'll talk later, yeah?
We're going to talk baseball. What are we talking, Pavel?
You know what we're talking about. All right.
It's been a pleasure. And I just also want to say I'm very grateful for the work that you do. And one of the reasons that I was grateful for this invitation and just how well you've been able to bring forth this information is I know that you're deeply respectful of people, and you also, when you have questions and when you have skepticism, I mean, in the past, you've been great about reaching out, but you have that really dedication to humans and just being respectful. So I really admire how you're somebody who really seeks to elevate the seriousness and bring respect. And that is very much one of the main reasons that I wanted to come on today. And I mean, because I know, so we had a conversation and it just kind of came up, the question about a week ago about biologics. And then, but timing wise, it is a time period that I do think things are going to be coming out. It is a time period where the current research, it seems like, has come in under attack of being a hoax or being in bad faith. And I can certainly say we've come forth in good faith, and we've only seen goodwill and what appear to be very serious scientific investigations undertaken, and without any hubris of saying what the answer is, but more an openness to help us explore something that looks like it could really be extraordinary, regardless of what the final outcomes are. These don't look like us, so it's probably going to be very interesting, whatever the results show. And any of the outcomes here is going to be very interesting because there's no end game here that isn't extraordinary and fascinating, regardless of what we find out. These are, you know, where they're from, you know, how old they are. So, so we really look forward, not just in this, but in most areas of disruptive science and innovation, encouraging just those biggest breakthroughs. And so, so we're eager to learn more on this one, and grateful for the work that that so many people are doing in this and other fields, and that you're doing to highlight the questions, which are it's important to address the questions too.
Thank you so much, Ana, for that. Y muchas gracias a los dos. Entonces,
Gracias.
voy a dedicarme a editar esto para poderlo sacar lo más pronto posible. Doctor, que esté muy bien y que se recupere al 100% lo más pronto
gracias,
posible.
muy amable. Gracias
Ánimo.
por
Ana, thank you very much for your time.
Estamos coordinando. Sí.
And I'll see you guys around. Like and subscribe. You know what to do.
Thank you.
Bye.